In person and would like to make a public comment, please make sure you fill out a comment card located in the lobby and give it to the clerk. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature or *9 on your phone. Please unmute yourself when prompted. There are 4 items to be heard by this board tonight in the order listed on the agenda. The procedure for each will be as follows. Staff will introduce the item. The applicant will present the item. Audience participation occurs with those in support to be heard first, followed by those in opposition. The applicant will be given a chance for rebuttal if necessary. Audience speakers should restrict comments to pertinent information only regarding the item being heard. Audience members will have 3 minutes to speak, or 6 minutes if representing an official group, such as an association. During the public comment period, we will start with comments from our in-person audience, followed by our virtual audience. Speakers should begin by speaking at the podium, clearly providing their name and address for the record. Speakers from the virtual audience will be announced. Please be ready when called upon. The board may ask questions of the speaker. After all speakers have been heard, public comment will be closed. Any items shown, such as videos, presentations, pictures, or maps, must be left with the clerk for the public record. Items shown from electronic devices not in paper format should be sent to the clerk for the record. The chairman will ask for a motion from the board. A motion will be made by a board member, followed by a second from another board member. Board discussion may ensue, concluding with a vote by the board. I will call the question to the board, "How do you vote?" And each member will respond with aye or yes or nay or no. I will confirm if the motion carries or is denied for the record. We will start with the first item on the agenda with accepting proof of publication. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. How do we vote? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. How do we vote?
Aye.
Okay, next let's follow with regular agenda items. Agenda item number 1, this is a technical review item, the Hidden Oaks preliminary subdivision plan.
Hi, good evening. I'm Annie Silloway, planner with Development Services. I will be presenting the Hidden Oaks PSP. The applicant is requesting approval of the Hidden Oaks preliminary subdivision plan on 31.53 acres, located approximately 1,000 feet southeast of North Ronald Reagan Boulevard. The PSP proposes 105 single-family residential lots on 31.53 acres, with a maximum density of 3.78 dwelling units per net buildable acre, and a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. The PSP complies with all the conditions of the Hidden Oaks PD Final Development Plan, Development Order, and Chapter 35 of the Seminole County Land Development Code. All internal roads will be private and utilities will be provided by Seminole County. Public access is via Gardens Drive and South Lane. Final off-site road improvements will be evaluated and determined during final engineering. Staff recommends approval of the Hidden Oaks PSP as requested.
Okay. Questions from the board? Okay. Seeing none, is the applicant present? Would you like to add anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Would any member of the audience wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this request? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Board questions, discussion, or a motion?
I move we approve the preliminary subdivision plan for the Hidden Oaks subdivision.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. How do we vote?
Just, Madam Chair, for the record, we had no electronic participation
Okay,
either.
I'm sorry. I didn't make note of that, actually.
Can't
I'm going to
forget
keep
that.
forgetting that. Okay. We'll call the vote.
Aye.
And the motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, public hearing item, Borough Pit Amendment to the Land Development Code.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Hopper of Development Services, presenting item 2, proposed amendments to the Seminole County Land Development Code to provide additional regulations for borrow pits within unincorporated areas of the county. Under the code, a borrow pit is defined as an excavation of 500 cubic yards or more, where excavated material is transported off the property or deposited on the same property but moved using public roads. Chapter 65 of the code currently requires borrow pit approval by the Board of County Commissioners if the excavation exceeds 10,000 cubic yards, with staff approval possible for smaller amounts. Exemptions from this requirement include installation of utilities, building foundations, ditches and canals, and excavations that are part of a subdivision development. The proposed amendments address this latter exemption where the excavation is part of an approved subdivision. Currently, there's no specific limit to the volume of material that may be excavated on such a development without borrow pit approval by the board. One proposed revision to Chapter 5 would limit this to 200% of the minimum required stormwater retention volume. A greater amount would require board approval. Another revision would limit exemptions to 5,000 cubic yards, requiring a borrow pit approval for any excavation exceeding that. This limit, based on changes since the last meeting, this limit would now be measured in net cubic yards and would not include things like muck or contaminated soils or other materials that are not suitable for development purposes. Staff approval of excavations up to 5,000 cubic yards could be granted by joint agreement of the Development Services and Public Works Directors. Approval criteria would include potential impacts on plant and animal species and groundwater conditions, including wells, springs, and aquifer recharge areas. And we have Mr. Bill White of our Development Review Engineering team to answer any technical questions for you. Staff recommends approval of the proposed amendments to the County Land Development Code addressing borrow pits as presented in your staff report.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions from the board?
I have, I'm just unclear, just maybe drafting, in section 65.1, it talks about you can remove muck and other unsuitable material and so forth and so on. It really is not clear there. It just says, for example. So can you remove muck and other unsuitable material without a permit, and regardless of its quantity? Is that what you're saying there?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
For the record, Bill White, Public Works Engineering. Could you restate the question? I didn't.
Well, in 65.1, it talks about, there's a sentence there at line 68. For example, situations include but may not be limited to the removal and replacement of muck with suitable, blah, 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 and it goes on. I'm trying to understand, because it's really not clear here, and it should be, can I, if I'm developing a site, can I remove muck without a permit? And I don't have to have then a haul permit or any kind of permit. I can take away bad material. Is that what that's saying there or not?
Well, no. This is just to define what the net cubic yardage, what can be considered to go against the net cubic yardage. So as long as we can remove these types of soils, as long as we're replacing them, and that doesn't go against the calculation of the overall removal from the site. But to answer the question as far as can you remove muck, yes, you can remove muck, but anytime we get into a large quantity as part of the construction permit process, then we start looking into the haul road and any haul routes.
So you're still got to get a permit one way or another to haul it away?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm good with this ordinance, but that just doesn't seem clear to me. If you guys would take a little better look at that, I don't know. Maybe it's clear to others, but it's not clear to me.
Hey, Bill, this is Rebecca. If the chairman will recognize me, I would like to clarify if possible.
Sure, go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. For the record, Rebecca Hammock, Development Services Director. And Paul and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the intent of that section was so that they could remove unsuitables without counting towards the net cubic yards, so that it could be removed and it wouldn't go towards the 5,000 cubic yards.
Right. For the record, Paul Chipok, Deputy County Attorney. The section and we're in Chapter 65, which is the Borough Pit Permits. Okay, if you look at line number 64 in the ordinance, it does say that an activity not required to obtain a Borough Pit Permit under this section shall still be required to obtain all other applicable development permits for the activities in such development permit order shall address and mitigate any associated excavation. So the intent is that a borough permit would not be required if it's under the 5,000 net cubic yards, but your other applicable development permits of which you are developing your land are still required to be obtained, and any peculiar items applicable to removal, such as needing a haul route, would be addressed through that other permit.
So I'm still not clear, Paul, because then so muck is not calculated as part of the 5,000 yards or 10,000, whatever it may be. If all I've got is muck, it's not calculated as part of the...
For the purpose of a borough permit, correct.
Yeah, okay, but I still not clear. If I have 10,000 yards of muck, which sometimes is possible in park areas of this county, and I want to haul it away, I'm not clear. Do I need a permit or don't I? I'm just not clear on this paragraph. Maybe I'm missing it.
My assumption would be, in your scenario, you're in some type of process of development.
Yes.
For the county, which would require some type of development permit. So if there are...
Yeah, I'd have a normal development permit, of course.
Right, so any issues such as a haul route or any extraneous items like that would be addressed through that other permit.
So I don't need a borrow permit for hauling away 10,000 yards of muck?
Correct. Right, correct, Bill?
As long as it's replaced, is the way I think I understand it.
Well, yeah, it's replaced, but I'm replacing it with material on site, so
Good.
I'm not...
For the record, Bill White again with Public Works. Yeah, you could feasibly have a development where you would remove 10,000 cubic yards of muck if you're bringing in 10,000 cubic
No,
yards.
what happens if I'm not bringing in, Bill? I'm generating fill on site, but I'm taking out 10,000 yards of muck. So I'm not hauling anything back in, I'm just taking out the bad material, which is sometimes necessary when you do development, because you can't lose it, you know, I mean, you just got to take it away.
If it doesn't go against, if you're not bringing it back in, then yes, you would end up with a borrow permit for that.
You would?
You would.
Okay. This paragraph is really not clear. Paul, would you, between now and the commission, maybe you guys take another look at that paragraph?
Yes.
Are there any other questions from the board? Would any member of the audience wish to speak in favor or in opposition?
Yes. hold on.
Sorry, I have one too.
Okay, we've got a few in support. Cindy Holler.
She wants me to go first, I guess. Is
I was
that right?
going to call you, but I was going to give you a chance to sit back down. Rest from that run. Yes, go ahead. Mr. Selener, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, George Sellery, 5231 Shoreline Circle in Sanford. And I just wanted to tell you, when we first talked about this borough pit ordinance, it was due to a situation with the ski lake, which was a borough pit for a number of years before it would become anything else. So we all got together on this. staff, the county attorney's office, everybody, to try and make this thing better. And we submitted that to you, and you guys took a look and said it makes sense. And I think that's the goal of the whole process. So when I look at this, we're not talking about developers in my mind. Developers are building commercial, they're building residential, versus somebody that's just selling dirt to make money. And if you don't believe that, there's a guy with a blueberry farm sometime down the road in Lake County who's making a lot of money but will one day have a blueberry farm. So I guess besides landfills and cement plants, there's not really too many people that are in the Borough Pit in the Borough Pit business that are going to get up here and have a whole bunch of support from anybody out there at all, even developers that don't want tons of trucks going down the road while they're trying to do their subdivisions or commercial property. So again, I would like to hopefully have you guys support this unanimously to go in front of the board. Like I said, the staff worked hard on it, residents worked hard on it. You guys gave us the opportunity to do this, and we'd like to continue with that process, and I really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
But by the way, that's really not what this says. It says if you're a developer and you have to, if you're hauling away that much material, you still got to get a permit. This is
Right,
not
but
just...
Yes, sir, but we changed it, or it was changed to where it's the net, and you still do have to get that permit, but if it's 5,000 or less, you have to get that permit. If it's more than that, you're going to have to go to the board and have a public hearing and let all those other folks, again, the net amount. So I agree with your standpoint about the muck and stuff, and I think there's some for the 200% overage for stormwater and things like that. It won't affect very many that, typical huge developments. There's not that many of them that would ever be caught up in this. It's really just to prevent borough pits. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Holler?
Thank you, Carissa. Cindy Holler, 1731 Beacon Drive, Sanford. I just really, overall general statement, just want to say that I know P&Z sent this back before to staff, and staff and the public did work together and came up with a very fair ordinance. And I just appreciate your support on this. Thank you.
Mary, anyone on Zoom?
Yes, I have Kaylee Adams, and she's in the meeting. She can unmute herself to speak. If you're able to unmute, and you can speak.
I'm sorry, I had to step away for a moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Kaylee Adams. I'm at 1011 Mockingbird Lane in Geneva, Florida. I would like to speak in support of the Borough Pit revisions. A lot of residents out here banded together and worked rather tirelessly against the ski lake proposal, and we would not want to have this happen again, where we would spend 6 hours deciding with the county on whether or not it was something to move forward with. So these revisions, I think, would be a great way to prevent those issues and to make sure that any development is done with minimal impacts and within ethical practices. I hope to hear the board to support this unanimously so that we can move forward, and I would like to applaud the county staff for working with us in making these changes, and thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mary?
No.
Okay. Then at this time, we'll close the public comment. Board, questions, discussion, or motion?
I myself would like to reach out to the staff and thank them very much for working with the public on this. I think it's a fantastic partnership that we allowed the public to come into, and you took their input and you came out with a good ordinance, and maybe, moving down the road, we can do this a little more often, and I think it's worked out fair and equitably for everybody. So my hat's off to the staff.
Thank you.
And I'll make a motion, if no one else has any comments, to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 65, mining, borough pits, and excavations of the Land Development Code to clarify circumstances which require a borough pit approval by the Board of County Commissioners for borough pit excavations exceeding 5,000 cubic yards of material, and providing standards for the exemptions from a borough pit permit in conjunction with plating of a subdivision.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll move on to item number 3. Seminole County Fire Station 39, small-scale future land use map amendment and rezone.
Good evening. For the record, Annie Silloway, Planner, Development Services. I will be presenting Seminole County Fire Station 39 rezone and small-scale future land use. This is a request for a rezone from A1 Agriculture and R1AA Single Family to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions, and a future land use amendment from Low Density Residential, LDR, on approximately 2.0 acres, located on the south side of First Street, 0.1 miles east of Orange Boulevard, to allow the construction of Fire Station 39. The existing A1 agricultural zoning classification permits single-family residential, plant nurseries, and R1AA single-family dwelling zoning classification permits single-family residential, community residential homes, and low-density residential LDR permits, single-family residential, public elementary, middle, and high schools. However, it should be noted that public facilities such as elementary, middle, and high school are allowable under the existing A1 zoning and LDR future land use. Therefore, the proposed amendment to PUB and the rezone to PLI are compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, as are similar facilities adjacent to residential areas such as Station 14 on Hadaway Drive, Station 21 on Seminole Drive, and Station 25 on Moss Road. The applicant is requesting a rezone to Public Lands and Institutions, PLI, and a future land use to Public Quasi-Public, PUB, in order to develop the subject property in compliance with the Seminole County Land Development Code and the Seminole County Comprehensive Plan. Staff finds the request to be a necessity for the fire station in the area to support such development. The character of the surrounding neighborhood is stable and will not be affected by the proposed change in land use designation. Recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt the proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from low-density residential, LDR, to public quasi-public, PUB, and adopt the ordinance enacting a rezone from A1 agricultural and R1AA single-family dwelling to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions, for approximately 2.08 acres, located on the south side of First Street and 0.1 mile east of Orange Boulevard. That is all I have.
Questions of staff?
Yeah, what's the closest Seminole County Fire Station to this location now? Do you know?
At this moment, I don't know offhand. I don't have the map in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions of staff? Okay. Do we have any members of the audience who wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this request? None? Any on Zoom, Mary?
No, for the record, no.
Then we'll close public comment. Board, discussion, questions, or a motion?
You leaving it to me, Richard? I'll make a motion to recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt a proposed ordinance enacting a small-scale future land use map amendment from low-density residential to public, quasi-public, and adopt the ordinance enacting the rezone from A1 agriculture to R1AA single-family dwelling to PLI, public lands and institutions, on approximately 2.08 acres located on the south side of First Street, 1/10 of a mile east of Orange Boulevard.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then the motion carries. We'll move on to our last agenda item, public notice procedure, comprehensive plan text amendment, and land development amendment.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Dagmar Segarra, Senior Planner for the Development Services Department. I'm glad to be here, my first presentation with y'all, so be kind. So tonight I'm going to be presenting the recommendations for public notifications and amendments to the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. This is a consideration for an ordinance amending the implementation of the element of the Seminole County Comprehensive Plan and the ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Land Development Code to revise regulations applicable to the public participation and public notice and for public hearings. Just want to say, to begin, is that these proposals, these amendments, were presented to the Board of County Commissioners on a workshop on January 12th of this year. Based on that workshop, the staff worked to come up with these regulations. Currently, our Land Development Code is very simplistic on what it says in reference to public notifications. In the comprehensive plan, it only says that we need to send notifications for 300-foot radius to all property owners near the existing property, and that we need to provide in those notifications 15 days prior to a scheduled meeting. Our Land Development Code says that the property needs to be posted with a placard at least 10 days before the scheduled meeting, and this is for rezoning, variances, and special exceptions. That's all it says in our code. So staff proposal, first we recognize that we are in a particular county that is divided in two areas. You have the urban area and you have the rural area. And we recognize that each of those areas are very unique in their characteristics, and that the reach to the community is very different due to the parcel size. A project notification within an urban area has the potential to reach more parcels with a smaller notification radius, while the land use amendment and rezonings are very rare in the rural areas. The county also receives applications for such and for variances and special exceptions, and therefore, in order to reach those larger parcels, so the buffer are created bigger for the rural area. So if you can see on the table, as you can see, it's divided into two areas. It's divided in the urban area and it's divided on the rural area. The urban area buffer sizes on both areas are divided per size of an acreage of the property, but each acreage buffer in each area has a different radius. As you can see in the table, the radius for the urban area is significantly smaller for a property between 0 and 5 acres in comparison to a property that is in the rural area, which is the buffer area will be a 1,500 radius for the notification. So we did this in mind because the minimum size on the rural area is a minimum of 1 acre in size. We do have some parcels that are less than that. That's why we included them in the 0 to 5. But because in general the minimum size in the rural area is 1 acre in size, that's why the radius is bigger. And I will demonstrate that later in the presentation with the examples and the map as well. So, also included in this table, to maximize the numbers of people notified, we have included a minimum numbers of parcels to be notified. In other words, if the notice standard is not met, then the notice distance is increased by 100 feet intervals until the notice standard is reached. In addition to that, then the division manager has the authority to increase the notice areas that's deemed necessary. So as you can see in the third section of the table, that it has minimum number of parcels, you see that they have to hit a number of minimum parcels there, and if that number is not met, then the buffer gets increased. Now, in addition to the table, as I mentioned before, the radius is determined according to the project location and acreage. This and to maximize the numbers, we have included the minimum numbers. So these mail notices are for notifications for future land use map and zoning map and non-residential variances and special exceptions. And the notifications will be provided by the county as it is today, but 10 days prior to the scheduled meeting. And in additional properties might be given notice at the discretion of the division manager. So here's the first example in the urban area. Here you have a property that is within the urban area, and this property falls into the category of 0 to 5 acres in size. Under our current 300 radius, only 12 parcels will be notified in this particular scenario. With our proposed amendment, we can reach, in the radius of 500 feet, we can reach 31 parcels. This is 19 more parcels that we would have reached today. And here is a second example also in the urban area for the 5 to 10 acres. In our current code, it will be reaching 9 parcels. Under the proposed buffer of 1,000 feet, it will reach 124 parcels. And the third example in the urban, this is a property that is 10 acres in size, more than 10 acres in size. The buffer is 1,500. And under the 300, it would have reached only 25 parcels. Under proposed buffer, it reaches 294 parcels. So here is the examples for the rural. So the rural, this is a property that it falls into the 0 to 5 acreage, and the buffer is 1,500. Under our code right now, it would have reached only 14 parcels. Under the proposed, it reached 88 parcels. This is a 5 to 10 acre example. The buffer is 2,500. It reaches 11 parcel in comparison to the 4 that would have reached to the 300. And then this last one is a very interesting one, because this is demonstrate very clearly what we said about how much it can reach the property. So this example one, they're both the same size in acreage, but that is where they're located. The first example reaches a total of I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, so it reaches a total of 619 parcels on the proposed buffer. In example 2, with the same buffer and the same size, it only reaches 28 parcels. So this is why it was important for us to create a bigger buffer radius for the rural area. So now, in addition to these changes, over the past year or so, staff have worked with the county commissioners to increase the size of the placard. We went from an 11 of 17 to an 18 to 24, but we felt that it was more beneficial to increase that size, and right now we are proposing 24 by 36. Here's an example. This is the placard that we have today.
A little more visible.
The 17. And the 24 by 36 is almost double the size. And now we're also making a requirement that it have to be a minimum of 2 placards per project per parcel. And the placard now has to be placed 15 days prior to scheduled meeting. and it has to be preferably visible from the road, collector, or arterial whenever possible. So, and the last item that was added to this amendment is community meetings. Right now, the county does not have a requirement of community meetings. It's at the discretion of the developer, and we highly recommend them. And we did a study around all the municipalities in the area, and we noticed that for rezonings and future land use amendments, for the most part, there are requirements. So we decided, after meeting with the county commissioners, that they felt also that they should be a requirement. So now it will be a requirement to have a community meeting if you're making an application for a rezone in future land use, a special exception, and non-residential variances. We made that distinction of residential variances and non-residential variances because there is it's not the same thing if there's a commercial property doing a variance than an individual in their single-family residence doing a variance. Now the division manager has the capacity of waiving that community meeting based on the need of the community and the type of request. And also the code will have provision of how this meeting has to be conducted. The applicant will be responsible for this meeting, and the meeting has to be conducted at least 20 days prior to the scheduled meeting. It is at the discretion of the developer or the applicant if they wanted to do it before they apply or after they apply, but it has to be at a minimum at least of 20 days prior to the scheduled meeting. So see, I've been told that you were aware, since we advertised this item, we received one email from a citizen, and I believe that Tammy provided that for the record. And this item is currently scheduled for the March 23rd Board of County Commissioners for a recommendation to transmit. So it is staff recommendation to recommend the Board of County Commissioners to the transmittal of the proposed ordinance as it's been presented. Any questions?
Questions of staff?
I have one. I really have a problem with your project area notification and so forth, particularly as it relates to the rural area. I mean, you've got it down here, you did it based on acreage, when it really should be intensity. I mean, if I have a 10-acre rural parcel that it's in R10 or something, and I want to rezone it so I get 2 units is all I was going to get, I got to notify 30 parcels. I mean, isn't that kind of ridiculous? That's kind of a hardship on somebody that's just trying to get a couple units out of a 10-acre parcel. So you base this on acreage rather than intensity, and particularly when it relates to the rural area, I think that's really a hardship that's totally unnecessary. I mean, I'm in favor of the ordinance. I got no problem with it, but I think the application of it is wrong.
So, Madam Chair, if, for the record, Mary Moskowitz, Planning Manager, so the decision on the size, what was based on the size? So the feedback that we received, both from the Board of County Commissioner and from the public, was that because parcels were larger in rural areas, that if we did not increase the notification radius, that neighbors, so, somebody who was, just the next parcel over was not getting the notification. So that is why it was based on size, was based on the feedback that we received from the public.
Yeah,
So that's,
I'm still back to the intensity issue. I mean, if I'm just trying to get 2 lots out of 10 acres, you got me, in the rural area, you got me notifying, I don't know even how far I'd have to go to get.
well, I guess it would be, staff prepares the notification, so we would generate and we send out the mailings.
But I mean, it just seems, I don't know, it doesn't seem appropriate.
I understand, yes.
And by the way,
Madam-
Mary, was this given to the developer review committee for their consideration? Was this ordinance?
I'm sorry, yeah. I believe that Rebecca Hamill provided copies of the proposed ordinance to them about 3 weeks ago. And that's, I believe that we got the feedback from Mr. Axel.
Madam Chairman, this is Rebecca, if I could respond as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, again, Rebecca Hammack, Development Services Director. Yes, I did provide copies to the Development Advisory Board, and we actually have a meeting tomorrow, so I may be receiving additional input at that meeting. One of the other things, with regards to the rural area, is we would not be seeing rezones and land use amendments in the rural area. So the notification is probably going to happen very few and far between. There are special exception requests that can happen in the rural area, but we would see very few application types that would require public hearings and need notification. So for instance, if you were wanting to do a lot split in the rural area to create those two lots, you would still have to meet your current zoning and your land use. And so in that case, you wouldn't have to go through a process that would require public notification. You'd be going through a lot split process or a subdivision process.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just
Follow-up?
one more comment. And it's just, to me, to complete the job. I mean, you did an economic impact statement here, and it only relates to Seminole County, but when you hold public meetings or neighborhood meetings, if you will, I mean, there's a big economic impact in terms of time, consultants, economic impact to a developer. And not that it makes any difference, but I mean, I just think you guys ought to consider those kind of things when you write this stuff up. Not that it changes the ordinance any. And you didn't point out, David Axel sent to me a couple pages of comments.
Yeah, Mary.
And he asked me, and I sent it to Tammy, and I think the board distributed. I think he makes some very valid comments in there, so you might want to look at some of that, or I hope staff does anyway. Because I think there's some tweaks to the ordinance you can make it better. That's all. I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Over here.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Being new in the committee, if you could just clarify for me how the notification is done. You mentioned that it's done by staff. So is the county also responsible for the cost of that, or is that cost turned over to the developer?
That's an excellent question, yes. So we calculate, so we have a fee schedule, and so the fee schedule is incorporated based on those costs, and one of those costs that we look at is the cost to do the notification. So when you make an application for a public hearing, you pay a fee, and part of that fee goes towards the mailings.
Understand. All right, thank you.
Great question, Dan, because now I'm trying to make two lots, and my fee's going to be substantially higher. I mean, that's just not right.
So, just to clarify, there will be no additional fee with this proposed ordinance. Any additional cost will be absorbed in the current fee.
Okay?
Okay. Further questions of staff? I forget I have to look at third place now. I missed you almost. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor or opposition to this item? Got a couple of them here. Mr. Celery?
Hey again. George Celery, 5231 Shoreline Circle in Sanford. And again, I want to thank you guys because this should make the most sense to any one of you. And the reason I say that is you're not making $80,000 a year to sit there. You're doing this for free because you've been civically involved and publicly involved in this community and spend a lot of time, on your own time, volunteering to do this. And I spent 28 years in county government and law enforcement, and so the number one issue that used to always come up was public involvement. Good, bad, or indifferent, the more information you have, the more information from developers, the more information from the public, the more chance of coming to a compromise solution that benefits everybody. I don't have any problems with a developer making money and not having to maximize costs, and just having some input to be able to help ensure the quality of life stays good for us. This ordinance, or this update, is fantastic. I mean, it really does a lot. If you try and drive by and see the old placards when you're driving 45 miles an hour down the road, you can't see them. And a lot of times you don't have enough notice to mount a defense unless it's something really significant that's impacting so many different people. I just would like to say one thing. I think the community meetings are great, and every time I've been involved with one with a developer, it's been great. I think, though, that the 20 days is fantastic, but I think Seminole County needs to step a little bit even more into the 21st century from the standpoint of, if you look at all our vaccine stuff, all the stuff being done on Nextdoor, when we send out notifications, we can pinpoint. I just got the stormwater ordinance notification today via Nextdoor. So many residents use it, and it's now broken down into so many different neighborhoods that it's easier to target some of those areas to maybe where one day we get away from even having to mail stuff. And instead, we basically post it on Nextdoor. And then the only other suggestion I'm going to have for staff at some point in time is that, you can't really read them in the newspaper without a magnifying glass sometimes on some notifications. So actually getting some of those put on the county webpage, maybe by commissioner district. I'm in District 5, Commissioner District 5, public notices for this area. At least it gives more information to the public, more ability to go out there and find out what's going on and provide input to both you and to the board. Thank you very much.
If I may, I'm just Dagmar Segura, senior planner. Yeah, I just want to address the comments from the gentleman. And that currently is the policy of the county. We do make rezonings applications and future lines applications available on Nextdoor as a courtesy, and we also have a development map in our website that it has the location of all the development and applications that we currently get. And I think we are in the process of also providing the public notices on our website.
Okay. Have another one in support. Cindy Holler.
Yep, thank you. Cindy Holler, 1731 Beacon Drive, Sanford. So, I like the community meetings being required. I like the increased placard size because you can't see them when you're driving by. You have to stop and then you're a hazard on the road risking your life to go read it. I like the increased notification area in both the urban and the rural areas. So I want to address the online versus, stuff in the, in the mail. I mean, mail is fine, but I don't think you can count on the U.S. mail alone. So it would be nice having, the county has web pages, having like a web page that just addressed meetings. So maybe the page would also address, what is a DRC meeting? What is a P&Z meeting? What is a Board of Adjustment meeting? What is a BCC meeting? And then have other links. So that would be neat. And I think it would be a good idea. And then also there would be a front page that would be public notifications. So I also am in District 5. And I think it would be pretty cool to go on there and to put in like my address, to have like a function like that and then see what's going on around me. So I didn't miss something. So I would like that mapping function done. I know that would be a job for IT. And, just to let you know what rezones and comprehensive plan amendments, and then if there's other things that, the public's notified about. So just wanted to add kind of those other thoughts. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we've got also in support, Wafa Esposito.
5040 Hawks Hammock Way in Sanford. Just not to repeat everything being said, I echo the last two speakers and thank you for this revision. Again, talking about the future, would be really nice to take it to Nextdoor, but also have the possibility of having the agenda itself. We go out 10 days putting the placard, but the agenda is never available until few days before, and that makes it hard for us with everything going on in our life to kind of make an educated research in the topic, so we would come and bring a positive or whatever, it will cut even your time, whether it's the BCC or the PZ, cut the time of us coming to ask the questions, because we have an ample idea of what is it that we could ask and research and, get educated before we come in front of you. So thank you so much.
Mary, do we have anyone online who'd like to speak in favor?
Yes, Kaylee Adams, and she can unmute herself to speak.
Hello, this is Kaylee Adams again, 1011 Mockingbird Lane in Geneva. I would like to say that I support this as it's written. I think that it is a wonderful idea. Being a rural resident, I am aware of how the varying sizes of parcels are, and so when you have a large parcel that is being considered for some changes, either developing or some sort, the notice only goes out to a few people, basically, and the rest of us rely on the Geneva Facebook group or Nextdoor to hear about any advisories that are put up, because a lot of times these placards are placed in places that are visible to the road, but they're not heavily trafficked roads, like say something off of Osceola or somewhere else where people don't drive very often. We're not all going to see the placard, and then if it's only a few properties that are directly surrounding that, then the rest of Geneva does not know about what is going on. I think that the extending the range would be a wonderful idea for us residents out here, your constituents as well. We, support the working together with the county and have advocated for our property rights out here and for the residents to be respected and heard. So this amendment, I think, is a very good idea for urban and rural areas, and I think that for the residents' best interests, we should look into furthering the reach through both mail and also, as others have stated, the online platforms that are available as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Okay, Mary, if there's no one else?
There are no other speakers.
Then we'll close the public comment. Board questions, discussion, motion?
I have, excuse me, one question. Did you copy this on other counties with similar mix of rural and urban?
Yes, and Dagmar can speak more to this, but we did do research to see what other municipalities did, and Orange County actually has a similar matrix, and
Okay.
so that's what we looked at, but we wanted to be consistent with our surrounding areas.
Okay, thank you.
No further to add.
Any other discussion or motion?
Make a motion to recommend the Board of County Commissioners transmit the proposed ordinance enacting comprehensive plan text amendments on public participation and public notice for hearings and public hearings to state and regional review agencies, and subject to final approval and adoption of the comprehensive plan text amendments, adopt the associated ordinance enacting corresponding revisions to the Land Development Code.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. That concludes our regular agenda items, so we'll move into our closing business. Mary, do you have anything for the board?
As I mentioned at my last meeting, we were looking at doing the ethics and sunshine training, our annual training. We have settled on a date that will be the March 31st, and we will also be inviting our BOA, our Board of Adjustments, to that meeting as well. So I don't know, you should be receiving a meeting notice soon for that.
Okay. Does the board have anything else? Okay,
We adjourn.
in that case, the meeting is adjourned.